I'll have to, if I have to communicate it on, but
What's that?
no, am I muted or not?
No.
I'm on.
I can mute you.
No, I'm good. I can do it. I got it.
Okay.
Just got to figure it out here.
So I guess Amanda and Co, we're going to walk through the presentation. I'm not going to spend much time on the upfront stuff since you've all heard it too many times. Point out a few things, and then I know that Dr. McCoy is going to pop in at some point. I think she got a 15-minute or 20-minute delay from appointments that she's involved with. So maybe what I'll do, Brian, what I'll do, Brian and others took a lead in sort of putting together those slides and sort of massaging them so that we have a order and a concept of operations, right? And some of that will be some handoffs here that I think are pretty clear. There's only a couple. I'll open it up. Well, I'll just go walk through it here. Hey, Rita, welcome.
Hello.
Okay, we're just gonna, oh, here's Roger, okay. So, okay, so we've got an hour and a half for this, which is good. That's a good amount of time. That's our usual, that was our usual Let's Get Technical call. Actually, we should change the name of that. We should make sure we put Let's Technical back in the slide title. Amanda, if you could just take some notes, that would be great. But I think because this is kind of a continuum of our Let's Get Technical calls. So opening slide, I just walk through quickly what this looks like, and then we'll come back. So just some housekeeping. The agenda, which is like, we'll do welcome and intros, one slide, 2 slides on the NIC, talk about the action agenda, how Project Unify, what is Project Unify, how it fits, then the demo, and discussion next steps. So we'll see how much time people think, probably more, well, we'll go through time in a minute here. So I'll just go through and acknowledge the NIC as the proprietor of this, and then talk about the National Action Agenda. For those of you, I think everybody's, a lot of people are involved with it. It's happening, there are a lot of people meeting pretty actively and producing stuff around the future state of starting in 21, how we can implement this, basically the proof of concept. This whole part of the whole National Action Agenda is identifying actionable stuff that we can go do. And that's all predicated on the go do part. And the go do part, in part, is the proof of concept. So it is really where the rubber hits the road, so to speak. That's where we're doing stuff that is, I don't think, being done in this way, for sure. And then we have a couple of slides just to sort of articulate what it is we're doing on NAA. And this last one is what we're really getting at. We're identifying and begin implementing a few high value, actionable recommendations, a couple of specific places across multiple domains starting in 21 that show demonstrable progress within a couple of years. So it's a real thing. We've set goals, we've got people moving on stuff. And so there's a context for the work we're doing. And as we've seen in the past, this is the organizing theory. I'll go through this, or actually, you know what?
This was where Christine was going to pick up.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We'll hand it off to her. Maybe what I would do is just is she on yet? She's not on yet. Okay, so what we'll do is I can open it up with this slide. Let me see what's right before this. Right before this. Yeah, so the goals, okay, so that means we go right into this. And that's a nice handoff for Christine to take, and then to go right into.
And I designed the slide order here with the notion that after NAA, we talk about the ink problem that then is informing Project Unify, and give Christine the opportunity to introduce Project Unify. And then Eric and I will take it over, getting into the technical details of Project Unify and doing the demo. So we basically get a little bit of Dr. McCoy's polish on the whole idea by giving her that opportunity to present it.
If you guys have any questions, comments, thoughts, jump in. It's floor is open. Don't be bashful. That makes sense. What I've been asking people to do is to use their emojis on their machine. So while it's fun to kind of just see people react to what's going on here. So anyway, so we'll talk about Sarah. We've had a lot of conversation around Sarah and her family within the NAA and each of the work groups. I just pause for a moment. There's 6 work groups and they're all working on different aspects of the complexity of this case. There's a new one we wrote, which we're not going to show, which is kind of what we call a back to the future, which is what happens if you could go back in time, change 1 or 2 things, and then accelerate back into the now. What would the world look like differently? How would you have changed the future by going back and doing something? So that other scenario is a much lighter, somewhat lighter, much more hopeful. Things have not fallen as far afield. And so we're comparing those things, and we're asking each of the 6 SDOH work groups to actually come up with their, to grapple with that and to figure out what they're doing relative to the case and what would be a really meaningful change in the system at the foundational level. Anyway, this is what we've been doing, is describing and educating people on the need to have a complex scenario which looks like ink, which has very rich personas in the 5 characters, from which you can create use cases, and then the data interoperability question that we need in order for the proof of concept to actually identify the data and share that. So that chain of thinking is not intuitive to everybody. And so there's been some education process along the way to help people do that. So Dr. McCoy will go through the Thompsons and say there's probably 120,000 of them that they're serving in New Jersey. And their whole program, the Integrated Care for Kids, is modeled on connecting these programs. And so she'll talk a little bit about that program, and then set it up. It's a real place. It's a real case. They're funded for 7 years, and there's 7 other sites across the country. So there's real applicability here. And so then from there, she hands it to.
Actually, from there, she could hand it off to me at this point.
Right.
But I'm going to give her some running room here with the slides to introduce Project Unify.
Right.
I yield to you and Dr. McCoy.
Okay. But we'll play it one by ear. I think this is a good place to certainly hand it to you, Brian, to outline that's I think what we're talking about, right? So you pick it up at this point?
Yeah, I'll pick it up at this point.
Go ahead.
At this
Just
point.
tell me when to advance the slides. Give us a synopsis. Give us a short synopsis, and then I'll advance it, and then we'll see what we need to do.
In order to fully understand the depth and breadth of the issues associated with Project Unify, we have to describe and explore a number of use cases, from the homeless SDOH use case, user story, really, this should stay, not use case, I'll fix that later. From the homeless SDOH user story for John Thompson, through to a single parent SDOH use case for Sarah, trying to take care of her children as a single parent. A homeless COVID use case for John when the pandemic hit. An integrated care for kids substance use user story for Jamison. And then the follow-on user story associated with the integrated care for kids need to submit a court service plan from child welfare. And of course, finally, an integrated care for kids behavioral health care plan for Jameson and the rest of the family. So this is a breadth and depth of functionality that needs to be supported. Next slide. With the exchange of information across multiple different information domains, each one of which has associated with it specific types of information defined by specific information domain oriented standards and specific information domain information exchange standards, all of which need somehow to be brought together into a single 360-degree view of this information for the individuals and families involved on the part of all of the participants, not just a healthcare-centric view or a court's view or a school view, but a 360-degree view that all of the participants get to see in order to advance the well-being of the Thompson family. Next slide.
So it's good. It's good to engage in, depending on the time we've got. So because there's different levels of understanding. Depends how much time that the non-demo demo is going to take, because it's a good time to engage people to see what domain they're coming from, what question they have, do they see the connect. You can probe as opposed to waiting to the very end, where sometimes people are they don't have any questions. So I like that. It makes it more interesting, and especially up here when we're talking about the use cases, like who's resonating with this, who's got those issues,
Sure.
and who's addressing them in different ways.
I think we'll have the time. I don't think we're certainly not doing an hour-long demonstration. This is 10 or 15 minutes, depending on how Eric and Matt, who are doing the demos, how their patter flows.
Okay.
So the Project Unified Goals and Objectives are to put in place a replicable functional framework that enables this type of interoperability and information exchange between multiple different domain-specific information sources using domain-specific protocols. And that raises the challenge of not just what information represented how, exchanged how, but also how do you know whether this information is associated with John Thompson, who was married to Sarah Thompson at one time, or maybe some other John Thompson who just happens to live in the same city or have a similar birthday. So identity matching information is very important. And being able to do cross-domain data mapping rather, between information that may have been represented one way in an electronic health record system, but very similar information that happens to be represented within a human services system is going to be critical so that we can put together that 360-degree view of the families and individuals involved. Of course, we need to make sure that we have reusable interfaces and APIs and sufficient security and privacy built into the systems to ensure that only the people who should be seeing information about John Thompson or Sarah Thompson with the rest of their family are able to get at this information.
Right.
And ultimately to put in place a repository of blueprints for how to build these sorts of things so that they are truly replicable across not just all of the industries that we're dealing with, but any new information domains that come along. Yes, Daniel.
No, I was going to say, folks on the call, please interrogate Brian now. What are some questions you would want we would want to bring out that would be illustrative or informational. Everybody, this is a hard thing to share. So it's really good if people are on the call on Friday, if each of you think about, sort of contributing to the conversation, because once people start talking, it gets really exciting for folks. Otherwise, it can be really deadly in terms of talking about technical stuff.
Yeah, I
So-
just not really knowing all aspects of the items that are listed.
Right, Ira.
And
Yeah.
I know the discussion we had Friday around how you manage data. I guess the question would be, is there like a perception of what would be used or how it would be done? Or is it more or less just saying, these are the areas that we feel are needed?
Actually,
And
as I get
maybe
further
I've missed
into-
something. Yeah.
As I get further into this particular presentation, we'll talk about how we have brought together subject matter experts
Right.
and are addressing specific types of problem spaces.
Okay.
And yes, we do have some notions for how to do this. It is still very much a work in progress.
Right. Right.
That's going to be in progress for at least the next 5 to 6 months.
Correct. I just from a high level, I was just looking or just thinking of like questions someone would ask.
Yeah, no,
And
that's great.
yeah.
That's exactly what I was asking.
I have a question that you might get. Could you go back to the bullet points on after this?
Yeah.
After this? Next slide. Next. This one, yeah. So one question you might get is what's the difference between reusable interface APIs and an open source API repository? Like, can you give an example of what particular APIs you'd be talking about, or what those APIs would do, and what the difference is?
Well, sure. The repository is storing a representation of what reusable APIs and interfaces we came across that were particularly valuable, such as, for example, the Fire subscription API, which we are going to be using today, Friday, as the foundation for publish and subscribe between OCL's Navigator and Serving Link's HS Link product. So that happens to be one of the major APIs that we're going to be, I'm sure, documenting as a recommendation. Make use of this particular API. You don't have to have a Fire server or a full EHR implementation behind the scenes to just make use of this specification for a subscription object that you can invoke over HTTPS.
Great. So this sounds like, okay, if you're looking for this particular use case of courts and child welfare, here are a set of industry standard open APIs that you might be using. And we're going to bucket them together so that you don't have to go to a half a dozen different sites, track everything down. We're kind of making it a nice clean package. Does that make sense? That good way of covering?
In time, it'll probably include referral APIs and long-term support services APIs and et cetera. And so we'll have a specification that says, in order to enable interoperability between these very diverse information domains, here are some specific industry standards that have been defined by other folks that you can make use of in kind of a mix and match.
Oh, hang on. We don't have to debate the details of it now. Part of what we need to do is understand the level of depth. I think that Matt was suggesting a technical question that would come up. As you were doing that, I also remember.
Sorry, I got all excited.
I know, but that's part of the trick is engaging in the conversation. See, So one piece, and I don't want to belabor this, we want to get on to the other thing. And two thoughts come to mind. One is, it might be worth to show, it's certainly in the leave behind deck, to show the specific applications. I wonder if that's what you were just asking about, because to go from here, general, sort of what were our objectives, to, hey, this is the specific stuff that's being developed.
Right.
Right? Does that make sense to see that?
Yes. So you'd
Gotcha.
like me to add this slide back in to,
I already did. It's right there. So that we had it in there at one point. What do people think? I mean, it depends on the conversation. If people want to know what the detail, what's hard to judge here, and this is getting your thoughts on this would be helpful, is to what degree, what depth do we go on this, right? Because we've got a lot of people from the National Action Agenda who have been hearing about this. So we don't want to scare them, but we want to engage them, because we're actually building it with 100 subject matter experts who are going to help inform the architecture and help inform the blueprints, right? We're taking their subject matter expertise, building out these problem solution sets and recommendations, which will sort of graft onto or through the, this work. So these are the things, for the last year, I think has been some of the output of the last year's work has been to identify these specific things, if I'm not mistaken. So, go ahead.
I absolutely, I love this. And this was I think the order that we had things in, roughly the order that we had slides for the integrated care for kids presentation last week. And so I have no problem with including this. Certainly at this point, it allows us to then say, and by the way, as I did last week, we're digging deep into some of the issues involved. But if we're going to do that, we need to delete what is probably slide 15 on yours, which is duplicative. That's the one where we go at a fairly high level and say we're looking at person matching, security, privacy, confidentiality, platforms, etc.
Right. Well,
So if we're going to include the detail one, which is fine by me, we need to get rid of this one.
who is going to offer a comment?
I had a question.
Could be like a supplement to it, correct?
Yeah, it almost looks to me that this one actually, and we had this previously, this one actually precedes this one here, right? You start with macro goals, you say, here are the meso level goals, and then here's the micro goals. So you don't even, you can spend a minute on this, right? You can say,
Yeah,
here's where we're starting, and this is where, these are the, right? We're starting with these two things. Security and person matching, right? I don't know if that's true.
I would still suggest deleting, and that's fine. I can do that with aplomb. I think that 15, your current slide 15,
Yeah.
is now, it's yet more of the same.
Yep. We'll just turn that off for the moment.
And yeah, if you can turn that one off, that would be great.
So,
And at this point, the flow goes from macro goals to specific working groups, which are the next slide, getting down into the gory details, which I'm not going to pester you with. And the people on these working groups include the following group of people, which are true technical subject matter experts, as well as industry domain experts that have come together to try to work together collaboratively and coming up with solutions to these problems, all in support of our families' well-beings.
yeah.
Whatever blather comes out of my mouth at that point.
Should be scripted. One question I had here is, maybe it just occurred to me, is there a rationale why we don't introduce people earlier and we wait? We talk about the vision all the way up here, get through the whole thing before we say who's doing it, who's working on it.
Well, they had started off much lower, but you've been moving slides ahead of them.
Oh,
If you want to drag these up above the slide 11, well, no, up above.
Right.
Yeah,
right after there. We should introduce our partners up front. I think, what do you guys think? Does it
Yeah, I
matter?
think that's probably more applicable.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it's just, it's the gentlemanly thing to do. Everybody in shock out there? Eric, you drinking milk or you drinking White Russians?
Water. It's vodka, just straight vodka.
All right, another 10 minutes and we'll get through this. So I think it makes sense to introduce our friends up here. We had a lot of slides. We've been paring this down. So if we get through to this was really the step off into the technical piece, right?
Yeah. Well, we can make 8. I can take it on from 8 and talk from the beginning of Project Unify. I was trying to give Christina something more to talk about than just those 3 slides, the animated slides.
Well, we could move that. We can talk about that there. So at that we're going to hide, and then so where does it would be good to have another voice on some of this as well. It's just hard to hear. The next slide up is unified demo, right? So that's when we move to you guys, right?
That's when Eric starts doing his thing.
And is this the slide where we
And
kind
then-
of take it to the actual, almost down to the actual data elements?
This slide?
Yeah, it's like
Yeah,
right-
this slide, we talk about what kind of information specifically needs to be exchanged for John when in order to address his need for housing assistance and potentially food assistance.
How about if we name them?
And that should be user story, not use case. And forgive me for harping on that, but a use case is at a lower level than a user story.
User story.
Yep.
Everybody agree with that? Maybe you want to challenge the master?
No, I
You
think that because use case is kind of like a flow, meaning you got A, B, C, and do X, Y, Z.
Okay. So Aaron, so that would make sense for you in terms of actually applying the POC. You'd want to go from here down to the use case. What comes after that?
I would think if you have the story, then and in the story, then you have specific use cases within the story, meaning you have different domains different use cases that are respective to the different domains. If that kind of makes sense to tie it together,
For example,
like chapters of the book.
Yeah. A use case might be John checks into a shelter.
Yeah.
What's involved with John checking into a shelter? And another use case might be John goes to social services to inquire about housing.
So,
Right.
so
That's
Brian,
another use case.
yeah. So that's really the handoff into the demo. I mean, if you can connect that dot, right? So not let people sort of drift between that, then that's be like, okay, then this is the demo, right? There's nothing in between that.
As part of this slide, what I would do is as not talk as the speaker notes currently say about replicable standards, but rather talk about the John Thompson user story.
Yeah.
Ever since his divorce, John has been homeless. He's struggled with PTSD. He's now I think we decided, Eric, he's in Florida. Is he in Florida?
He's in Florida.
He's in Florida and about to check into a homeless shelter there. And when he does, the HMIS system recognizes that he is now chronically homeless and notifies social services.
Isn't that, Brian, let me interrupt a second. Isn't that what Matt and Eric are going to talk through?
Well, they're going to talk through it. So I can skip it. I just wanted to figure out how much of a introduction I needed to do. at this point before turning it over to Eric and Matt to do the demo.
You know,
Is the
Brian,
purpose of this I'm sorry, is the
Go ahead,
purpose
Matt.
of this section to identify how interoperability flows through the different use cases per se? Because if I'm looking, when I see the story, and if I try to tie this all together into what's being presented, I see a use case, and then I say, okay, if I have 10 different use cases, is it the talk leading towards how you identify the commonalities in the use cases to bring in interoperability?
it's
Or
just
we-
one use case we're going to demonstrate, one specific one. It's,
One
Okay, so-
user story.
oh, sorry.
So the user story person, okay.
We call it the SDOH homelessness.
Okay, so that's,
user story.
all right, I'm sorry, I'm catching up slowly but surely.
So shouldn't all these things be just components of one human services infrastructure? In other words, the way it looks here is that you're going to develop systems for each one of those things, and then, use some exchange mechanism, if you will, to talk from one to the other and so on.
Well,
I mean,
Ken, the reality is there already are systems in place for.
yeah,
each
but
of these
are you really
different- and we're
projecting?
interoperating between them.
Yeah, are you just really projecting that, here's how you use all your old stuff in order to try to facilitate 21st century capabilities? Or are you trying to create an environment for the 21st century that actually facilitates the use of application and infrastructure to support all these individual things?
And if you have enough money in your budget to pay for every school system, every court system, every homeless management information, every homeless system, as well as all of the social services being offered by every state, to stand up a brand new, fully integrated system, I think all of us in the software world would love to hear about it, but I don't see that as a practical reality.
We have to do both.
Let me try to answer it from a different angle. And I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to answer your question, but Ken, what you're seeing is just this whole scenario, this whole user story of all these different, the whole family is laid out so that over the course of a series of demonstration projects, a series of months, you can see a full spectrum of a common human services infrastructure that addresses education, courts, etc. But what you'd see today or Friday is just one particular very discrete domain, the homelessness SDOH. Does that answer your question? I'm not sure if I'm getting closer to.
Sure, I understand, what you're trying to do, but if you look at the screen that they had up here before this, you got 4 or 5 different things that, are all part of the same process of trying to get, in this case, a homeless person into a home, right?
Right, and the other demonstration projects cover the other people in the full Thompson family story. And
Yeah.
we'll come back and we'll do another one on COVID homeless associated with John.
But this is just focusing on John and his Florida homelessness, housing instability, social determinant.
So that's exactly the point. So what we're doing here, thank you guys, that's really right on. What we're balancing a go do January 2021 in, creating the new, helping New Jersey create its actual Inc. implementation. There's the reference blueprint. So they can go build what you're saying. They can build the connectors between the systems that are already, committed and connected and partnered to go build out an alternative payment model to address this family. The 120,000, I don't know if Dr. McCoy is on the call yet. Christine, you on? She's the first person to say, I got 120,000 of these people, but I've got all these legacy systems, and if I can connect them, then I can do more holistic care. I'm not going to rebuild them, but I'm going to build connectors, and I'm going to hopefully get some more information so I can act more quickly, especially around critical things with kids who are involved with drugs and homelessness and getting taken out of their homes. On one hand, we're trying to do that, and we're trying to make it trying to implement it literally so she can take the blueprint and then create a requirements document to go build it, to go build how she's going to connect using FHIR and NEEM and SEDS and all those, whatever those pieces are and all the standard stuff. On the other hand, which is really what you're asking, what's really important here, and that's what we want to get across is, what's that architecture so that everybody else can go build it out? So as you go invest the next new dollar, let's build towards that future where there were interoperability and less friction is available, is happening. And that's the catalytic effect of this work would be, is if you can bring all this work together in the context of NAA and the kind of stuff you're doing, Ken, which is trying to facilitate interoperability and the standards and connecting with all of these different moving pieces. That's a contribution that's very real. It's visionary, it's ambitious, it's structural. We're looking for structural change. So what can you actually structurally change to make, can you blend the funding streams within the NOFO so you can actually build stuff together, or put, reactivate A87 or bring NISI and update, next generation of NISIA stuff.
Yeah, all I'm saying is for a state or organization or whatever to have to open up each one of these individual applications and, put stuff in them that facilitates exchanging information from one of these programs to another and so on and so forth. The cost of that is going to be way more than, having an infrastructure that people
Nobody's adding
adapt to.
Nobody's adding information. We're just
It's not a question of information. It's a question of taking information and passing it from one thing to another. And, doing all that work within an application that you don't even know what kind of shape it's in, for example.
Well, we will know because we're going to do it. Mary, are you on the phone? Maybe with that.
Ken, just some reassurance and you will come to understand this once you have a little more experience here in Project Unify. But a lot of the work that we are doing is identifying intersections for interoperability and then recommending things like FHIR ELTSSs as resources for exchanging long-term support plans, and FHIR care plans, and FHIR subscription resources, and et cetera. But not with the intention of standing up a full EHR, FHIR-based EHR for a court system or a school system or a human resources.
Yeah, but
But
an EHR example is a poor example.
Mechanisms for interoperability. And thank you for letting me finish.
Sure, but using an example of an EHR system to do this is not the right metaphor. But aside from that, go ahead.
This matches the requirements of a specific location that needs to connect across the behavioral health system and their Medicaid system and their housing system and the early care and education. It looks like what they actually have to go do, and the systems that they've got in place or add on to them in ways that can facilitate that. So anyway, it's a first step. It's a small step, but it's a step, which is an important thing to be able to take in 3 months. So Eric, are you and Matt ready to be able to show what you want to show at this point?
Yes. So according to the use case, John Thompson checks into a homeless shelter in Florida. And so what you would be seeing here is the case manager. Let me share my screen right now.
I'll make you the host, the co-host there.
Okay.
Got it?
Got it. I think.
You need to do the code.
Can you all see my screen?
Yeah.
got HS Link in the upper corner. So this is OAuth, the authentication. So the case manager is logging into the human services system, providing their credentials. And then the case manager, who has John Thompson next to them in the client intake, John has already been in for services at this particular emergency shelter. This is an app that runs on HS Link. So HS Link is like Smart on Fire, where you have many apps that run on the platform. So Open City Labs, this app is called Pitone app, runs on HS Link, which is like the data warehouse, that open source data warehouse that powers the human services interoperability, has open APIs too. So anyway, we're going to search for John Thompson. Let's see, John Thompson, there he is. Here's his record. And what we're going to demonstrate, and we can't, during the Friday demonstration, and we will record this live, team, before the demonstration. So if anything goes wrong on Friday, we'll be ready. But we're going to show a split screen where changes in this Pitone app change things in through FHIR subscription pub sub notifications, push notifications that are subscribed to by OCL. They will send the notifications off that changes in the client record have occurred for John Thompson. And you'll see it on the other side of the screen when it changes in Open City Labs and Navigator product. So anyway, what I'll be doing then is just showing you kind of a one-sided view where the push notifications are going out to emails, because we don't have that fully ready to show you, but Matt will show you Open City Labs and Navigator side of it separately. So this will be better on Friday, promise. Anyway, looking at John Thompson's records, he's got an enrollment already. So we don't need to collect all that information. It's not likely you always have to do that. And because we're both apps are sharing data from the same warehouse, there's no need to re-enter everything over and over again. You can see right now that John Thompson is not chronically homeless, because they didn't collect, you need to be disabled to be chronically homeless. If you're not physically disabled or some other type of disability, you can't be counted as chronically homeless. So let's change that to he has a disabling condition, and save that. So no data is being stored in the app. It's actually making a web request to HS Link with the open APIs, and then storing back in HS Link, and then Navigator product can get at the same data. But anyway, you'll see that his chronic homelessness status here has changed to yes. It's a calculation, a HUD HMIS algorithm for that. So now there's social determinants of health for current living situation. If you're living on the streets, you can be deemed as having unstable housing. And so we want to send an alert to Open City Labs Navigator, which can search for eligible services for John Thompson. This is just a homeless management information system. It doesn't know what all is in the community. It's just enrolling him in programs and getting assessments on him and providing reports to Congress at the end of the year. But let's get some data over to some social determinants of health, FHIR published data over to Matt's system. So we're going to say that he's in a place not meant for habitation. And that is actually what Gravity Project said was one of the codes that, is a screener code for housing instability. So I changed that. And let me see if I can show you during the demo. Okay, I should receive an email pretty shortly saying, in the demo that we do on Friday, we'll have the other app showing a notification, but I just wanted to show you that the notification went out. But anyway, going back to John's record, you can see that John Thompson is chronically homeless and has a current living situation of living on the streets and or a place not meant for habitation. And we've done our work. So then the next part of so the storyline of this use story is that he then is checked into the shelter and then checks out the next morning and is advised to go to the human services how are we going to phrase this, Matt? The Human Services caseworker?
Catholic Charities of Tampa Bay, I believe.
Okay.
It's the name of their organization.
Okay. So I would stop my demo at this point, and then Matt will pick it up. We'll rehearse this more tomorrow, but Matt would pick it up and show, well, they would, because of the split screen, they'll already show the notifications showing up there. But then when John Thompson goes to the Catholic Charities office, he won't have to restate all his information. He'll be notified that he is eligible for certain services. So Matt, do you want to
Sure.
fill in the additional
If someone
part?
else can let me share my screen, or should I just be able to do it? Oh, the host will have to.
Matt, I made.
I've unshared mine if that matters.
No, I need to be like enabled, I guess.
I just did.
Oh, okay. Okay, great. All right. Can you see my screen?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Great. So here we have Laura Shoemaker, the case manager, who's looking at her referral dashboards here. She can see all her client list. And if she wanted to help, we've populated some information from John Thompson. If she wanted to help him access some programs or say set goals, she wants to connect John to programs that will help pay for housing. And then the barrier, so this barriers could be populated from, a social determinant of health assessment question like accountable health communities or prepare. And the problem is that he can't afford rent. That's the barrier. And then based on that, we can set a time period when we're hoping to achieve that goal, placing in housing. And based on that, we have a set of recommendations of programs that might help John achieve their goal. And here we see this is a rental assistance program. Oh, we'll have to change the address of the client to Tampa Bay. And you can see that the organization that delivers that particular program, the one that is associated with that particular program. We can share that program if we want. And let's now screen for eligibility to see if John Thompson is eligible for this program. So just by answering a few questions, we can, hold on a second, must be, okay. Let me start over again, okay.
So this is a caseworker.
Yeah, this is a case manager screening for eligibility for this program.
Good if you just say that as you're going through it.
Okay.
Houston, we have a problem.
If we were looking, let's say we knew he was eligible right now and we were just ready to essentially apply, right? So here, this is again, we've been able to auto-populate this form, and then based on that, we've been able to auto-populate that form, and then based on that, even if this is a program, for example, that say the New York State Office of Alcoholism, even if they only accept this form via PDF, we don't have an integration with that particular government agency. We've been able to automate and autofill this form, making it easier for the provider to help them sign up for programs. So we can then auto fax it directly from the screen to get it over to the agency, or we can download the form and they can, if they need to bring it, walk it into the agency, they can do that. So that is pretty much the end of the demo. So I guess one thing I would just note that's a little bit different from other types of scenarios. These are programs, right? Obviously, many other organizations will have, this isn't part of they might have a community resource referral platform where you're referring it to another organization.
Right.
But we track on a kind of a granular level, what programs does this organization deliver? So that's another thing that's, I think, unique. So that's what I got today. There's a little bit of kinks to be worked out, but I think that covers some of the ground here.
And I think what we need, I was talking with Brian earlier about this, I think we need kind of at the beginning of this is a quick, super basic diagram showing, the two apps sending, living situation is on the street. And then just, I don't know, a couple arrows showing, how the information is flowing between the two apps and with the HS link in the middle, because otherwise I don't think people will understand the layout of what we're doing or how the data is flowing. So I was thinking about making some quick, really basic diagram, and maybe put the word fire in there just for people that are, interested.
Yeah, I think that would help.
Protocols.
I think that would help because that would have clarified it for me, because I was putting the pieces together as it was going through.
Okay, Aaron, I'll send to the list like a Google Draw file, and then we can comment it, and I'll get it finished tonight, and then try to finalize it by tomorrow.
Eric, in terms of where you put that in, I would create that, go through it before you actually do the demo, and then people will have a better feel for what it is they're actually going to see when you demo it.
Okay, so something like the app on the right side of the screen, when you see the split screen, is this one here, and the app on the left is this one here, and HS Link's just sitting in the middle.
But you've done a chart first to explain to them how these two things fit together, and moreover, how they fit in with everything else that's been presented so far.
Yeah, and how they're at two different spatial offices, in Tampa area.
It was a caching issue. I just cleared my cache and it works. So this is the next set of questions, and then boom, John Thompson is eligible.
So let me just I know we're going through it quickly here. People don't know what you're doing. So if there's a highlighter, it's good to sort of say, just be very specific, because people never ask questions when they're not following you, and all the boxes look alike. So I don't know what I'm looking at necessarily, Matt.
So this is, I'm sorry.
I'm just saying, when you explain it, it's good to point at it, give people a second to catch up with you, move slowly around the screen. If you move faster on the screen, people get vertigo.
Great advice. Yeah, I was just pointing out that there wasn't any problem with the eligibility screening. It was just,
okay.
It was the fact that the browser, it was a caching issue, and when I cleared my cache, it worked fine.
Blame it on the equipment again. Blame it on the equipment.
So for my dexterity, so it's kind of showing that data is being collected and then it's been shared, such that it doesn't have to be re-entered or collected again. That's the general message.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's right.
Aaron, if that doesn't come through on Friday, feel free to sort of offer that up as a commentary.
Okay.
And I encourage everybody here to sort of add to the soup. Let's give our partners time to talk as well, because depending on who the audience is, it'll be mixed. Some people will be very technical, some people will be not so technical. So we should just pause and breathe and wait for, make sure people are coming along. And if you've got an idea if it makes sense to sort of sort of explain it, or not explain it so much, but give an example or put it in different terms of what's happening. And I think that diagram would be great. And in fact, Eric, the thought I had was we could actually put the graphic of John Thompson on a slide, and then get a couple of little personas to show the flow of information from him. He walks in, boom, he hits, he hits whatever it is. So just to bring it back to the use case again, like say, that's John, he's going here, he's touching that information is coming over there to Matt and then back again, and he's being served.
Yeah, like 1, 2, 3 steps, as he progresses through this thing.
Right. And tying it to the whole project and the whole concept as well. Yeah.
And we could flip back to that slide, in between Matt and I, just to show, okay, now we did this. Now we're on to step 3, and then flip back to.
Yeah, and you can just either cut them out of the slide, use a PDF cutter, or I can just put it on for you. That just chop, if that makes sense, if it's not too hard to do that.
Yeah, I can get that.
Great. Well, that's very exciting.
Good job.
Good, very exciting coming together.
We will be working hard to polish this. We apologize for not being able to show you the split screen with the messages going between them, because that's really what's supposed to excite people, is that these apps are talking to each other. They're notifying each other about things that they're interested in. So, Matt's app can subscribe to hear about changes in chronic homelessness or current living situation on the street real time when it's recorded by the case manager in our system. And then it can go the other direction too. And so that's another use case we want to show in the future. But right now we're just doing the one direction.
And I should explain that this has been, we've had interoperability between OCL Navigator and HS Link in the development environment, but when we went to deploy in our staging environment for doing the demo, we discovered that the person who knew what the administrative password was for creating the new database had
Holiday.
This
company. So
Yes.
no longer had control over the database on the staging. That is being fixed as we speak. And I am hoping that tomorrow we will be back up and running and able to actually run through a rehearsal with Eric and get it recorded, as well as, of course, being able to demo the real software on Friday.
But the recording will be done in some fashion. We will have some working backup that will show meaningful demonstration, but I'd prefer it if we could show it live.
So from a data sharing standpoint, is it clear that all data is updated in each environment regardless where the data is being managed or reviewed at that time? So
Right.
so it's all dynamic in the sense of being up to date.
Yeah, because with HS Link in the middle, and it doesn't have to be just HS Link, we could go to other servers and get things, but the idea here is that we're working off the same database essentially.
Right. Okay.
Same APIs, and so it's real time. If Open City Labs is refreshing, and somebody in Katonap, the HMIS that you were saying for homeless management, if they change his last name, well, that would change immediately in Open City Labs app as well. What we're, and this is what Unify is getting into, is what happens if you have many HS Link data warehouses?
Right. Yeah, that's what happened. Yeah.
How do you broker between those things? And so that's more, but it gets into, storing the concurrency and, sharing roles and all that stuff. So that's, the work of Unify essentially.
A correct or clarify, Eric, we actually are working with two different databases that are in essence federated. We have the Navigator database and there's the HS Link database.
Right.
And we use publish and subscribe to subscribe to changes between those two databases. And when those happen, at least from the OCL side of things, we make a call to the standard HMIS API saying, oh, by the way, we have a change here on our side of things, or thank you for letting us know that something changed on your side. We need that value so that we can update our database and keep them in sync.
Right. And, likewise, HS Link could be talking to different continuums of care. It's like the homeless region for HUD. you know, in pulling in data from those and having it in HSLink and then syncing back to those as well. So yeah, we're already at a point, like Brian was mentioning, where we are syncing between many databases, but it, you know, like some sort of federated thing like Direct has, you know, where there's a registry in the middle, you know, or that's nationwide, you know, that's, you know, where we would be working towards.
Great.
There's
And then
two,
also, I don't know if it applies, but just a question I would think of would be, as you share the data, just say like you had 3 more entities that were accessing this information, is dependent based on your level of access to basically what you see. That's part of that
Part of it.
client. Right.
Yeah, and then also the client's consent on who they want to share with.
Right.
You know, so I didn't want to show it in the demo, but you know, with both software systems, I believe you can
Right.
say, oh, I want to share with these sub projects of these agents.
Yeah, because that seems like all the ways to be a question I get is, well, you know, this group should not be able to see it, but the standard
Yeah,
who eyes only is needed.
I think that's a really good point in maybe incorporating that into the intentionally into the workflow that you're talking about, Eric, to say, okay, here's the data, and you know it follows certain consent, you know, rules associated, you know, some kind of detail, because I think Aaron's making a really good point that a lot of people will have questions about. Right.
I was planning on holding off until I think the January demo, when we would be demonstrating consent to share and DS4P for human services information.
Okay. So at that point, you could demo or illustrate one system showing a certain view and another system showing another view, based on a collective data that's been provided.
But having variable
John
access.
Thompson,
Yeah.
Right.
and John Thompson being asked on his phone, is it okay if we share this information with Catholic Charities so that they can, you know, take a look at rental assistance?
Brian, to
Gotcha.
be clear, I wasn't saying that we were going to be demoing, you know, the consent to share today, Friday, but rather just to mention up front that any kind of data sharing would need to be contingent on having the appropriate consents between organizations. You know, something basic enough to acknowledge the importance of this issue and move on. You know,
Right.
so that there's
and having that been on a screen to say, hey, client has provided in consent. That way, regardless wherever avenue the data is accessed, that person accessing the system knows there's no question that consent is there. Just kind of, those are the things that kind of, work through daily.
Something in the user interface and when we demo the intake process on Friday that can speak to what you're talking about, Aaron.
Okay.
We'll talk with our team about that. I'm not sure if we could build that into the interface by Friday, but we'll talk to our team about.
Yeah, you could probably put like a little checkbox and a little verbiage that doesn't do anything. It just kind of is there.
You're making a really good point, and I want to attend to it. And I'll just talk to the team about what we can get done by Friday.
Right. Okay. I'm just thinking of questions, just playing the devil's advocate.
No, it's good. Very, very, very important issue. Yeah.
So I think one of the things that would be really important, and we've talked about this before, is to signal out, right? So that one last slide with the various things that are happening, feel free, and I know Brian will set that up at the beginning to say, this is 1.1, right, or whatever. This is we're going to add to it, and we're going to ideally, aim towards getting getting the Thompsons or the parts of it.
Yeah, I think what was presented is good. I think that was presented is good, though. Good job.
After the demo, there is a slide that we haven't covered yet, which is just the roadmap slide that lists the next set of demos. That one. So I figured once the demo is done, I'll say, and by the way, this is just the first of a number of demos. Tune in December. December 11th is the new date. I hope we don't have anything else scheduled then for the single parent SDOH demo.
We can be flexible with the dates, but I think that's one of the NAA meetings. So that might be really cool if we could distill this down. Because in the next NAA meeting on the 13th of, the 13th of November, we're thinking about having two kind of fishbowl work breakout groups at some point during the afternoon, where we focus more on the technical piece of it, and sort of to have more of a fishbowl conversation around how the technology is or possibly can support or enable the implementation of the action recommendations, some of the specific ones. And so that would be a great conversation to be able to take these ideas, those people who are in both groups, and be able to extrapolate out from there. Because what I want for the NAA folks to know is that there's going to be whatever the right, December, January, February into 2021, when it can be extended and replicated in multiple jurisdictions. Can the learning go out there? Because I continue to believe and hear from all across the country that there's not really a roadmap for that. People are doing pieces of it, but they're doing it within one domain or two domains, but not across domains.
The NAA folks have seen most of these slides, so we could probably keep it very tightly focused just on the demonstration and a couple of slides to set up the demonstration.
But we should just tell them that, we're going to tell them that we're going to see a piece of it, and then we're going to remind them of that later. All righty. So that's, Brian, I can send you guys back the version I've got here. And then you guys, we can just do whatever tomorrow, just get it ready. And then it would probably be good to get on the call half an hour early tomorrow on Friday, just to walk through everything and make sure it's good. And with that, any questions, statements, updates, new news? It doesn't look like the election's over yet, so hope springs eternal.
Hopefully it'll be over by Friday.
Hopefully it'll be over by Friday.
Hey, Dan, I just had a comment on something I noticed on one of the slides that I think I noticed previously, but it hadn't been changed.
Yeah, what's that?
If you can go to the slide that has all of the different details with all the different areas that the POC is addressing. It's you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, let me share
Very
it.
slide.
The very busy slide.
This very
Look at that.
Yeah.
Under person matching, the identify needs to be identity. So there's just a little typo there.
Yes.
Under cross domain identity, the second bullet.
Good eye.
And my question is actually relating to the first one with referential person matching. What do we actually mean by that?
I mean person matching based on a common repository of information against which we can refer between disparate different systems.
Okay, because my understanding of what referential matching is something that references like a third-party data source, like a credit bureau or some other type of registry. Is that what you're referring to, or something
It
different?
doesn't have to be a credit bureau, but yes, that is what I'm referring to. And various systems have found ways of refining potential matches and storing those potential matches in a referential repository so that they don't have to go and recalculate every single time they attempt to do person matching between two different systems.
Okay.
That's what we're referring to.
Does that make sense, Rita? Does that make sense? Is that in alignment with what you're hearing in on the accelerator programs and then FAST and the other, there's so much stuff going on person matching.
No, well, no, that's why I'm asking, because that's not something that we're looking at in FAST. And I was kind of wondering how it got on this list. I mean, I know it's been referenced in ONC meetings and other venues, but I just didn't know if there was a particular reason why it was included.
Is there something that should change? I mean, should we be talking?
No, I was just wanting to get an understanding as to, I guess, Brian, your like thoughts on why specifically it's essential for the person matching aspect of the POC.
It was one of the issues that I thought we were looking into as part of the person matching group. And perhaps it's something that we need to bring back into the person matching group and discuss whether or not it's still something we should be considering.
So in the context of the POC, where would this apply? Like where and what is being described would this fall under? Or
we use person matching to determine.
No, I know person matching. I'm talking about the referential matching area.
Oh, you're asking where the referential matching would apply?
Yeah.
Eric, is OpenCR based on a referential repository? Or does it calculate each and every single time?
It's based on a referential repository that is stored in an Elasticsearch database for fast retrieval. So when changes are made, then it recalculates.
So what, Eric, are the data sources being used as part of that referential process?
For OpenCR that we're using? I'm sorry, data sources, you mean like funding, like HUD?
No.
or
No, in terms of like what other sources are being used to help a match?
Oh, you mean algorithms, or do you mean
Social security number,
Data.
address?
What personal identifiers are being matched upon? Is that yeah,
Yeah,
we're using the core HUD ones right now, but you can configure OpenCR to do, gosh, you can add custom identifiers. They have a huge list of identifiers, and then you can pick your mix and match or matching algorithms, probabilistic and deterministic. So it's like that whole thing is a healthcare that was a project built for UN PEPFAR over the aughts, I think, and then this August this May they released it as an open source project hosted by IntraHealth. So I mean, IntraHealth systems could answer any questions about like open CR, like how it works and that.
Okay, I'm just misunderstanding, but I'm not sure. Maybe I'm not asking the right question in terms of what I understand.
May I suggest that this is a topic that we should probably have a person matching working group meeting.
Here.
Discuss.
Yeah.
I think this is probably the wrong time and place for doing this.
Yeah, because what we use is one that's pretty much tuned towards human services uses, but there's nothing saying that we couldn't add additional fields or additional handling. But yeah.
Are we talking about like master client data, like a master client identifier?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So OpenCR is Open Client Registry, and it's an enterprise client registry / master person index.
I would imagine, although I don't know for sure, within the court system and civil courts, where there are fines and fees and licenses and contracts and evictions, that you'd want to be able to reference people in different, LexisNexis kinds of systems that.
Exactly, that's what I'm referring to.
Yeah, those things are so broad. If you want to identify whether or not you've got an outstanding fee or loan, or you want to get a license to do something, that probably shows up all the time. And the court, we've been doing a bunch of work in the courts, and how the courts are utilizing commercial technology from banking and real estate and finance and telecommunications. That's actually a question we've got out there that we're going to be doing in our focus groups with Pew Charitable over the next couple of weeks. So, Lexus and those guys are scary with how much information they have about all of us, right?
One of the challenges that we have ahead of ourselves is that we've been tasked to come up with blueprints, specifications for
Yeah.
creating replicable interoperability. And yet we don't really have a whole lot of specifications coming out of any of our working groups. We've got some nice pictures from the architecture working group. And I'm, as one of the co-chairs or co-leaders of the confidentiality and privacy working group, I'm as equally at fault here, but we haven't done any of this. And I think what we need to do over the course of the next few months is reinvigorate our working groups
Well,
and get them to write specifications that say, this is how we recommend. These are our best practices.
Right.
Recommend for these things. And that's the place where we need to have these conversations about what is referential person matching? Do we really mean referential person matching? If we do mean referential person matching, how do we implement it, et cetera?
hey, Brian.
So I suggest we stand up all these working groups again.
So I should state that we are, the NIC is actually contracted with New Jersey to do some of this work, right? So there's a relationship, and those specific requirements and needs will become pretty clear within a real setting, because they, it will be designed for them. And Aaron, if Fairfax is, as you think about your architecture, and I don't think Jesse's here from Arizona today, and folks from Santa Clara. So there's a number of places that are, stood up and are kind of waving their hands saying, I'm interested in seeing how that is applicable in my environment. It's all the whole reason for all this stuff is because everybody's been asking for it for years, right? So now we actually get to do it, maybe. So that's the show today. We'll just spruce it up a bit. We've got an hour and a half. I think we've got, oh gosh, I think we've got at least 75 people who've registered from the registration, and another 50 on the Outlook out again today. So we'll have a good group of people. And it'll be a great start to this. It should get a lot of hopefully interest and attention. There's a great group of people who are signed up for, people who've indicated their interest in coming. So it'll be a diverse, high-level group, and off we go. So thanks everybody for the hard work on this. And we're just getting to that, literally getting to the starting line to be able to actually do more of this, and more about that as things proceed. So unless anyone's got other stuff they want to say, or a good joke, or a bottoms up cheer of sorts, I guess we'll talk to you. Hopefully we'll know who our president is by the time we talk on Friday.
Right.
That's what's up.
Yep.
Pray for peace.
Yes, sir.
Take
All
care.
right, everybody stay safe.
Good night, everyone.
All righty.
Bye.